In this video, we're going to talk about how to run Jenkins on Docker. You may be used to installing Jenkins by using just the WAR file, or maybe using the package that is available for your operating system. You can also run Jenkins in Docker, which means you don't have to install any bits directly on your operating system except for Docker. Running Jenkins on Docker is the perfect way to simplify the installation as well as the ongoing maintenance of your Jenkins controller. Here's today's starting point. I have Docker on an instance. That's it. We're going to walk our way all the way through this installation. So the first question you may ask yourself is, what version of Jenkins do I need to pick? Now in this video, I'm going to be picking a little bit older version so we can go through an upgrade so you can see how that step works. So we're starting out at Docker Hub. And if we look for Jenkins/Jenkins, that will land you on this page. Let's click over to tags. And from here, based on the current date that I'm recording, the most recent LTS is 2.303.2. So we're going to start with 2.303.1. So I'm going to go to Filter Tags, and I'm going to enter 2.303.1. And we can see here that I have numerous versions available to me. Now, what I can see here is I have architectures available for both Linux AMD 64, which is what I'm using today, and also Linux ARM 64. If we scroll down a little bit further, we can see that some images, specifically this CentOS 7 based image, is only available for Linux AMD. So you're going to need to understand your underlying architecture. In my case, it's a CentOS 7.9 AMD 64 based box, to figure out exactly which tag that you're going to want to run. Now, another way that you can do this, if you want to just search for LTS, you can do that. And with LTS, we're going to see the latest, which in this case is 2.303.2. And for this top one, we can see that it's available for Linux AMD 64, Linux ARM 64, as well as Linux S390X. And if we keep going down through here, we can see that a lot of these have multiples, and then we get less until finally it's the singles. Again, you need to understand what version of OS and what architecture that OS is running on so that you can determine which image is available for you to use. So let's go ahead and get our shell up, which is where I'm at right here. I'm going to paste in docker run command. And all of the commands that we're going to be running today are going to be over in a gist. The link to that gist is down in the description. And we're just saying docker run rm, so when the container stops, it will remove the container. I'm giving it a name of Jenkins. I am passing in ports 8080 and 50,000. Now today we're only going to be using 8080. And then I am specifying the image tag that I'm wanting to pull and use. In this case, it's 2.303.1-JDK8. Now, I'm picking the JDK8 version of this image so that I can show you something with JDK11 towards the end of this video. So let's go ahead and run this. So it's unable to find the image. That's fine. So it's going to download it, start it up, and then we're going to go through and set up our controller. This will take just a few moments as it goes through, extracts, and starts up the controller. Okay, so what we can do here, just to speed things along a little bit, let's copy this initial password. We'll go back over to our browser here. I'm going to go to the controller. I am going to paste in this password once it allows me to. Should be there momentarily. Here we go. We'll unlock it. And just to speed things along, we're going to skip installing plugins today. So I'm going to say none, install, just create a user here real quick, because we're not going to be running any jobs in this video. I just want to show you how to do things differently with Docker to run your Jenkins controller, and click Save and Finished. Now we're going to start using Jenkins. So here is our Jenkins controller. So I could create a new item. I guess I sort of lied, didn't I? I meant to say that we're not going to be running any jobs, but I am going to create a job. So I'm going to say test job, freestyle, click OK. I'm not going to do anything other than just save it. And we can see here on the dashboard, I've got a test job. Now, what's going to happen when I stop this container? Let's go back over to our shell. We can see that it's running. I'm not running it in the background just so you can see what's happening. So when I stop this container, I'm going to do a Control-C, and it stops it. So right now, if I take a look at Docker PS, there's nothing running. If I take a look at Docker PSA, there's nothing there either because we use the --rm argument to automatically remove the container when it shuts down. So if I was to start this back up again, let's do that. What's going to happen? What we're going to see here is that we get prompted to install Jenkins again. And why is that? The reason why is that we did not give Docker a volume to attach to this container. So once this renders up, what we will see here is we're unlocking Jenkins. If I was to unlock Jenkins again, just to prove it out, I'm going to say select plugins to install none, and say admin, 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 admin. Then what we're going to see here is our test job that we created doesn't exist because there was no volume to persist the state across restarts. So let's go back over to our shell. We're going to stop this. And now what we're going to do, once I clear this, let's paste this in and take a look at what's different. Everything is exactly the same except for the volume. And what we're doing is we're going to be creating this volume, Jenkins_home, which is sort of wrapped around, and it's going to be mounted into /var/Jenkins_home, which is the expected Jenkins home location within the container. So let me back up here because I copy and pasted. Okay, so what do we have? Docker run, remove, name, ports, volume, and now the image. So let's go ahead and run this. And the reason why this is running faster, we've already pulled the image down, so we're not getting rid of the image each time we restart. Image still exists on the machine, but what we haven't done is persist the volume until now. So let's go ahead, copy this password. We'll refresh this page again. It may still say we're starting up, so we'll give it just a second to complete. Okay. This time, we'll pass it in. This time we're going to install suggested plugins. So this will take just a moment. And then let's set up our user. Save and continue. Save and finish. Start using Jenkins. And then we have our controller. Let's go and create an item here. We'll call it test job, like what we did before. I'll just select pipeline this time. Doesn't really matter. And click on save. So now we have saved a test job at the root of our Jenkins controller. So now let's go back over to our shell and stop the process. So if we're to go back to the browser, what we're going to see is it's just going to sit there and spin. Connection was reset. That's fine. Let's go back over to our controller instance where it's living. And let's go ahead and start this again. Because we're passing in the volume, it's going to mount in that volume as the container starts. And once it completes the startup process, then what we will see in our browser is we now have a login screen. So let's log in as admin. And we can see that our test job persisted the restart. Okay, that's all well and good. So now we have our volume, but what happens when we're ready to upgrade to the next version of Jenkins LTS? Remember, at this point, we're running Jenkins 2.303.1 down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So if we weren't using Docker on our CentOS-based box, what we would do is we would say yum upgrade Jenkins. And everything would happen magically within that space. But there's files that live in different parts of the file system, whereas with Docker, we have our container image and the volume being managed by Docker. So it's a much cleaner implementation. So let's go back in to our shell and let's do our upgrade. Well, what does our upgrade look like? So we did our shutdown and do a clear. And the run line here is exactly the same as what we did before, except for we bumped the 303.1 to 303.2. Now let's watch what happens. It couldn't find the image, so it's got to go and download the image. As it downloads the image and extracts it, what's going to happen is the container is going to come up based on this new image, 2303.2-JDK8, and then it's going to mount in that volume that we already had from the previous run. And if everything goes well, then what we're going to see is that our job still exists. One other thing that you can see here is that we are upgrading Jenkins, which is passing by us here momentarily. Let me see if I can catch it again. Here we go. This line right here, upgrading Jenkins. The last running version was 2303.1. This Jenkins is version 2303.2. Okay, that's good. So it's doing what we expect, and now the log is saying Jenkins is fully up and running. Let's verify that. We'll go back to Firefox, refresh this. Since it restarted, we do have to log in again. And we can see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have Jenkins 2303.2. Now, one more thing you may not realize is at the time of recording, Jenkins recommends that Java 11 is the version of Java to use to run the controller. So how do we do that? Well, let's go back to how we just started up our .2 image. So let's go back to our shell. Let's go ahead and do a Control-C, do a clear, and then let's change the tag from JDK8 to JDK11. Now it's important that we are staying on .2 because our Jenkins home currently is .2. So we're not changing anything specific about Jenkins. We are changing which version of the JDK is running Jenkins inside of Docker. So again, we'll hit enter. Not surprisingly, this image does not exist locally, so we need to go and download this image. As it downloads and extracts, once it completes, it's going to bind in that volume that exists and then start up. Let's see what happens now. As it's almost finished, let's go back over to our browser. We'll refresh here, log in one more time, and now we can see on the Manage Jenkins page, we're no longer getting that notification about Java 11. And in fact, just to prove it out, we'll look at system information, and we can see the Java version that we're currently running is 11.0.12. Why should you run Jenkins inside of Docker? In general, containers are easier to manage, and there's a good chance that the availability will be higher. Another couple of benefits is that it provides easier upgrades and better security. If you must run Jenkins outside of a containerized environment, whether that's Docker or Kubernetes, that's fine. But the ongoing maintenance and management of your Jenkins controller could be a lot more difficult as compared to running it within a container. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter at CloudBeesDevs. If this video was helpful to you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, click on that subscribe button, and ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime there's new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.